All right, I like to see progressives finally admitting that regulations are costly and burdensome, and increase costs, decrease output. That's what regulations do. They increase costs, decrease output. We've been saying that for decades. It's nice to see the left finally admit it. It's just a shame that they first admit this when it comes to abortion. Because that's their argument. These regulations increase our costs of performing abortions too high and decrease the number of abortions we can provide. I wish they would apply that same logic to, I don't know, electricity and regulations on coal and all the rest. Wow, these regulations increase the cost of electricity and decrease the amount of electricity. Therefore, that regulation should be reconsidered. Nope, they don't apply it to that or anything else. But on abortion, they're suddenly brilliant economists of supply and demand. Supreme Court said that these regulations don't really improve the health of women. And it's an unnecessary obstacle in the way of getting an abortion. Now, of course, we're talking about safety here. No one's talking about the interest of the baby, but that goes without saying. I love that it says, a state has a legitimate interest in seeing to it, maximum safety for the patient. Maximum safety. Patient, the woman, not the baby. Maximum safety, not a certain level of safety or some safety. Maximum safety. So Texas passes a law that says an abortion doctor has to have admitting privileges at a local hospital. It seems reasonable enough, right? Nope, too high. Well, hold on, I think they said maximum safety. Nope, that's too high. Yeah, but maximum is what we're going for. Nope, too high. All right, I want to take a break here. Because I want to read from some of the ruling. So, news coverage on Supreme Court cases is always a little frustrating because they never read it. No one reads the cases. So, it's basically a game of telephone. Maybe one person skims it, and then they say something, and then everyone else just goes based off that, and then 5 producers later, a reporter says something, and then it has nothing to do with what was actually said. So, I read it. So, I want to quote from the justices on this, so you can hear exactly what they say. Both the people who were for it, the 5 people who are against the Texas law, so overturned the Texas law, and then the 3 who were on the dissenting side. We'll do that next. 1-800-760-KFMB. Here's that. There are more medically intensive procedures that take place in clinics in Texas that don't have to meet the same standard that abortion clinics do. Right? So, like, I don't know, colonoscopy. They say more medically invasive, and you can do that at a clinic, and that clinic doesn't have to have this high of a medical standard. The abortion, less medical process, but they have to meet a higher standard. The Supreme Court says that doesn't make sense. And that Texas has waived no part of the requirement for any abortion clinics, as it is done for nearly 2/3 of other types of facilities. This evidence, along with the absence of any contrary evidence, leads us to the ultimate legal conclusion that this requirement is not necessary. It's really interesting. I don't know how often the Supreme Court rules that a law that a state passes is not necessary. Isn't that interesting? Just think of take abortion out of this. Just think generally about this. The people of Texas elect representatives. The representatives pass a law. And the Supreme Court, you believe you have a right to an abortion, then of course this Texas law violates your right. Just like a poll tax violated someone's right to vote. Right? If you believe that voting and abortion are the same because they're in the category of a right I have, right? Then these laws in Texas are just like poll taxes or literacy tests. Same thing, right? An unfair, unnecessary hurdle preventing people from exercising their right. So there's really no use even debating this much, because that's just what it comes down to, if whether or not you think abortion is a right or not. If you don't think abortion's a right, then all the regulations to prevent it are game on. Right? You're fine with everything. I think there's a regulation in there about like the width of hallways in these abortion clinics. They have to be, the hallways have to be a certain way, like structural, like building regulations about where the clinic is in, right? So if you're against abortion, then game on. All those are fair game. But if you think it is a right, then any regulation is going to be unconstitutional to you. So that's just what it comes down to. So you got the 5 people on the Supreme Court who think abortion is great and should be fine, and you have a right to it. Then anything that makes it harder to get an abortion is like a poll tax. Horrible. We got to stop. Unconstitutional. If you're pro-life, then any regulation to make it less likely is game on. So that's the distinction right there. All right, I want to make one last argument here from one of the dissenters, Alito in this case. He's not talking about abortion per se, and really we haven't talked much about abortions. It's the legal process here that's very dangerous. There's something called severability, and the left uses it when they want, and they don't use it when it, right? They use it when it helps them, they don't use it when it benefits them, right? So they used severability with the Obamacare case, but they didn't use severability on this case, and that's a point that Alito... So this is Alito talking about judicial overstep, and that's kind of what we've been talking about mostly, more than the abortion itself, because that's not really quite what this is about. He talks a lot about different types of judicial overstep. We'll do a little more of this tomorrow, but I want to end on this one point. So do you remember the Obamacare ruling? There were different parts of it up for a question, right? I forget exactly. Maybe there were 3. I forget. But they're like, oh, and by the way, I quoted something earlier. I said it was Roe v. Wade. Part of it was Roe v. Wade, and the other part was Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which was a case in 1991 that I will talk more about tomorrow. Anyway, just to be clear. So, where was I going, Miles? What was I saying? Oh, yeah, Obamacare. So Obamacare, there were like 3 parts that were up for consideration. 2 of them were ruled to be constitutional. 1 of them wasn't. Remember, there was one part, and no one really talked about it because the big news was about the parts that were constitutional, but there was one part that was ruled unconstitutional, and it was about Medicare repayments or something like that. But the court said, sure, this one part's unconstitutional, but the whole law stays, except for that one part. Okay, so we'll just take that one part out, but the rest of it still stays. That's called severability, where you can just sever off one part, but the whole thing remains. The opposite of that is this one little part is wrong, so the whole thing is null and void. Mostly, courts do the severability part, which is, okay, the whole thing's fine, but this one little part we got to go, so get rid of that, but the whole thing's right. That's usually what happens. So that's what they did in Obamacare. Right? This one part's bad, we'll get rid of that, but the rest is. But with this abortion case, the Supreme Court said this one part is unconstitutional, so the whole thing's got to go. All of it. Every single word of it. Every word of the law has got to go. Even the part, and this is what Sam Alito's saying, he said even the part that says abortion clinics have to follow certain fire regulations and fire codes, even that's got to go?
Yeah, that's true.
Alito says there's no possible justification for this collateral damage. Because they didn't apply that to Obamacare. They almost never apply that standard where if one thing's wrong, the whole thing's got to go. But here they do. That says a lot about their motivation. How about this line right here from Alito? The court's patent refusal to apply well-established law in a neutral way is indefensible and will undermine public confidence in the court as a fair and neutral arbiter. I think we're already there. A reminder, yet again, I'm hesitant to say it like this. There's probably a better way of saying this, but I'm just going to come out with it. This is all that matters in the presidential race. I know that's a dramatic sentence. There's a lot of things that matter. But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court is way too powerful, way too influential, and we cannot have Hillary Clinton define the court for the next 30 years. And then, of course, generations beyond that. As I just quoted something from 1972.
Amen.
The Supreme Court case from 1972 combined with the Supreme Court case from 1991 to decide a Supreme Court case today. Right? These precedents are set. They last forever. How different would our country look today if the makeup on the court was different in 1972 with Roe v. Wade? My argument would be, if you're waffling, if you're questioning on what to do in this next election, a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, I get them all. I would land on this one, though, as a tiebreaker, if nothing else. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Land on this, because this will have consequences for generations. I want to take a quick break here. I want to come back and talk about what the court looked like in 1972, because I'm kind of going to undermine my argument right there, because the court shouldn't have ruled the way they did. And I don't know if this is a point, like it's such an old point, and that's why no one says it anymore, or if no one thinks about it, or but I want to talk about the people who were on that court in Roe v. Wade. Now, I think it's kind of true with all things Trump and Clinton related. Trump's like, 50-50 shot, it works out. Like, maybe it'll be horrible, maybe it'll be great. I don't know. It's like Hillary, guaranteed horrible. I think that's the